You know that familiar feeling of dread when you check your bank account? You kind of hesitate, hoping the number isn't quite as bad as you think, trying to figure out if buying groceries this week means you're eating ramen for the foreseeable future. Well, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're unpacking a really fascinating concept about wealth. See, most financial gurus love to shout from the rooftops that you need $1 million or at least a six-figure salary to finally feel wealthy and secure. But what if they're completely missing the mark? Okay, let's dive into this. What is the real magic number for wealth? It turns out relying on those massive millionaire milestones actually ignores a much smaller, far more critical financial turning point. There's a specific threshold where the rules of the money game completely change, and it fundamentally alters how you interact with your finances. That number is exactly $20,000. Hitting this specific threshold is literally monumental. Think about it like pushing a massive heavy boulder up a steep hill. Getting it started is grueling, right? You're sweating, straining, making barely any progress against gravity. But 20 grand is the exact turning point where your financial boulder finally crests the top of that hill. Suddenly, gravity isn't fighting you anymore. It actually starts pulling the boulder forward for you. Before you reach that crest, when you have zero savings, your brain is actually trapped in something called survival mode. This is a mental state where every single financial decision you make is entirely reactive. You're filtering every choice through fear and scarcity. You might take a terrible job just because you need the cash right now, or stay in a toxic situation because leaving feels way too risky. When your mental bandwidth is totally consumed by immediate threats, you literally cannot think about long-term growth. It's exactly like trying to plan a relaxing vacation while your house is actively on fire. But crossing that 20 GAR mark triggers an incredible shift from survival mode to growth mode. You go from being reactive, fear-based, and focused entirely on short-term survival to becoming proactive, confident, and opportunity-focused. You finally get the mental breathing room to stop frantically asking, how do I survive until the next paycheck, and start asking the really fun question, how can I grow this money? Now, what's really interesting about this is how the data perfectly backs up this psychological shift. Research from Vanguard on financial well-being shows that getting just $2,000 in emergency savings gives your well-being a massive 21% boost. But when you push those savings to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses, which puts you right around that $20,000 mark, you get another 13% boost. You move entirely out of pure survival and into a space where your brain can finally focus on wealth building instead of just wealth preservation. Section 1. The math of momentum. How compound interest accelerates the timeline. So that internal psychological shift is absolutely incredible. But once you hit this level, the external, mathematical rules of investing fundamentally change too. Let's say you're saving $1,000 a month with an 8% return. Getting your first $20,000 takes about 19 months of pure, undeniable discipline. But here's the snowball effect in real time. Your second $20,000 doesn't take 19 months. It only takes 17. You did the exact same work, took the exact same risk, but you shaved 2 full months off the timeline because your money is working right alongside you. And once your portfolio hits 400,000, your next 20 grand takes just 5 months. The money is literally doing the heavy lifting for you at that point. And this brilliantly illustrates a widely misunderstood truth about wealth. You might think wealthy people have access to these exclusive hedge funds or secret investments. Not really. If you have $2,000 invested and get a 10% return, you make $200. Nice, sure, but not life-changing. But apply that exact same basic return to $20,000 and you generate $2,000. Now we're talking about meaningful progress. The secret isn't necessarily having better investments. It's just having the scale to make basic percentages yield serious cash. Or, to put it another way, at an 8% annual return, a $20,000 portfolio drops $1,600 straight into your lap automatically over the course of a year. That's money you didn't have to clock in for. You didn't lift a finger. It just showed up because your existing money was out there working on your behalf. But building this initial pile of money, it forces a really deep identity shift. First, you have to track every dollar and delay gratification. Then, you have to actively say no to immediate temptations and shiny objects. Ultimately, you prove that you control your money, not vice versa. This grueling process of saving that first 20 grand fundamentally rewires your financial identity. You become the kind of person who can delay gratification when it really counts. And that is a lifelong skill. Because you've rewired your identity, your daily decision-making completely changes. When you're broke, you agonize over micro-decisions, sweating over a $4 coffee, or stressing in the grocery aisle about generic versus name-brand cereal. It completely drains your mental energy. But when you have a solid foundation, you realize those micro decisions don't make or break your future. You stop sweating the small stuff and free up your mental bandwidth for macro decisions. We're talking optimizing your housing, your cars, your investments. These are the strategic choices that actually swing your net worth by tens of thousands of dollars. Section 2. Walking away money. Taking back control of your career. All of this newly freed up mental energy and financial stability immediately spills over into the workplace. When you live paycheck to paycheck, you are trapped in a weak negotiating position. You can't leave a bad boss or a mind-numbing environment because you absolutely need the cash to survive. But having 20 grand in the bank is what we call walking away money, and it unlocks a set of absolute superpowers. You can ask for a raise without fear of financial ruin. You can push back on unreasonable demands. You can freely explore new opportunities. Suddenly, you're negotiating from a position of strength, not desperation. And honestly, the most amazing part? You often don't even need to use the money. Just knowing it's there makes you exude a confidence that naturally attracts promotions and better assignments. It creates this fantastic, positive feedback loop for your career success. However, I have to warn you, there is an ultimate trap waiting for you right at the finish line. It's the absolute most common and frankly heartbreaking mistake people make. They hit the $20,000 milestone, they feel that incredible psychological relief we just talked about, and then they immediately blow the foundation on a depreciating reward. They convince themselves they deserve an expensive vacation or a brand new vehicle. Take a brand new car, for instance. 20%. That is the painful reality of how much value it loses the literal second you drive it off the dealership lot. You aren't just spending money. You are actively destroying the wealth you just spent 19 agonizing months working so hard to build. So the crucial point here is really understanding the concept of opportunity cost. Spending $30,000 on a new car means it loses value instantly and chains you to a stressed monthly payment that just creates the illusion of wealth. But if you invest that same $30,000, over 20 years, it can grow to $200,000. Driving an older, reliable used car isn't a sacrifice at all. It's a strategic choice that actively funds your future freedom through compounding investments. It all really boils down to this. It's the difference between surviving and thriving, between reacting to life and designing it. 20 grand in the bank isn't going to make you rich overnight, but it gives you something much more powerful. It gives you options. And having options creates more opportunities to make real money. Which brings us to a final thought for you to carry forward today. What is your next major purchase really costing your future self? Every single time you go to swipe that card for something big, challenge yourself to view it through the empowering lens of opportunity cost. Start building that financial foundation today because your future self is absolutely counting on you to make the right call.